time.
Yeah. But so the backwards thing is interesting because I heard you say that on
Yeah.
Shout at the Devil, you put in the Lord's Prayer backwards or something like that.
Yes, I think we had a girl come in, and I wanted a girl because I wanted the voice as high as possible, and we did it like at half speed, and then played it back normally, and it was double it was twice as fast as the speed at which she recorded it. The whole PMRC, I don't know if you were grown up then. I don't know.
Well, I remember like hearing about it on MTV and stuff, and they showed the footage of
Yeah,
Dee Snider and all that. And that was like a big thing. Yeah, when I was a kid, those stickers, they started putting the stickers on.
that's
And I
right.
remember like I was really into rap music actually before I got into rock. And I remember I wanted like NWA, and my parents were like, no. So like, you get your friend to buy it, and then you record on a blank tape and you write like New Kids on the Block or something, and you trick them.
Yeah, well, there was the parental, the Tipper Gore thing.
Yeah.
So they called people in to testify before Congress and everything, and they were all, there were people who swore that we were, worshiping the beast, and Motley Crue was, it was all about backward masking and being evil, and so I like to screw around with them, and and so we did the Lord's Prayer, which was probably the least offensive thing I could think of,
Wait,
And so I could see them, you know, recording it and then playing it backwards and then slowing it down and saying, what was he saying? Was he saying, kill yourself? Was he saying, let's worship the devil? Is it something dirty? And then it turns out to be the Lord's Prayer. And they go, oh, I see.
so was Motley Crue, were they doing that shit was it all kind of an act? Because there was this, I don't know, do you remember this limo driver? What's his name? Al Bowman. And he came out and he said that he drove the band to these like eerie ceremonies and rituals, and the Church of Satan. He drove Nikki Sixx to the Anton LaVey or whatever. Is there any truth to that?
Not that I knew of. No, they didn't.
Do you remember that limo driver? Or is that guy just totally full of shit?
I don't remember any limo driver. They didn't have a regular limo driver. When they had a limo, they, I wasn't with them all the time, but, during the time the few times I went on the road with them, they didn't have a regular guy. They never, they never held any rituals in the studio, and Nikki
was he doing? They were doing that shit just to fuck with people.
But Nikki was fascinated with the occult.
Okay.
And he wanted to, foster this evil vibe for the band, So, and the songs, right? Shout at the Devil. I'm not sure I never found out really, or never asked what shout at the devil meant.
Well, because I thought they tried to say, no, we're saying shout at the devil, like we're against the devil, but with the pentagram and stuff, and it seemed like it was kind of, they were doing the opposite. So yeah, it was a little confusing.
Yeah, that would have been Stryper, shout at the devil.
Yeah, well, yeah, that right. Would have made more sense for you. Worked with them too, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, no, I didn't see any evil. I didn't see any sorcery. I didn't see any occult. They were just bad. They were bad boys. They did not respect law and order or civility or courtesy. Well, courtesy, yeah, courtesy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what about Ozzy? Like, I didn't realize that you were in the meeting when he bit the head off the dove. You actually got to see that live.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't.
I wasn't in the meeting, but this is what I was told by people. But I can't remember who it was. But there are so many different stories. This one was told to me by someone who was there. I can't. I never even. I met Ozzy once. The bat thing was real.
Yeah, I had Rudy Sarzo on, and he told me that he thought, I think Ozzy thought it was rubber, and that's why he did it. Is what Rudy told me.
Oh, can you imagine? It really is not a taste sensation.
No, and how did I mean? You talk about like doesn't how they said COVID spread was like a bat. I mean, he couldn't got some disease or something or.
Well, I would think so. Yeah, a dead bat. Yeah, not interested. Thank you. Dead,
No,
dead or alive.
but yeah, that's just some crazy stuff in this book. I'm not a very good salesman. I can't sell things that I don't believe in. This book is amazing though. Like I'm telling people right now, go get it. We're going to talk about some of the stuff. Hopefully I don't spoil too much of it because I think there's so much in there. We wouldn't be able to talk about all of it anyways, but it's really entertaining. Like you've lived an amazing life. Pretty crazy.
Great. I'm so glad you like it. Really, I'm getting a lot of really positive feedback about it.
Yeah.
And I think people are probably surprised that somebody who did the things that I did musically could actually write. And and I really
have an MBA from Columbia. I mean, I think that you probably did a little writing there.
Yeah, mostly in college, really. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to memorialize the era. I wanted to tell people why that music was so good. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all like I think I told you that my show is all about entertaining, educating, inspiring people. And I feel like that book does all this. I mean, your story alone is inspiring. Just I love that you start off the book and talk about how you took this advertising job and you weren't happy. And then that's like a lot of people's story. I think that people are scared to kind of follow their dreams. And then you finally decided, you know what, hey, I'm gonna go you write this letter to Clive Davis and you get a job at the record label and the rest is history. But that's a big lesson to learn. I think that people should, hopefully be inspired by.
Follow your dream. Yeah. Well, I was very lucky because at the time, the record business was exploding. They were hiring people. They were making albums as fast as they could to meet the demand. And there happened to be a position open. I was very lucky,
Yeah.
But I really went from hell to heaven overnight.
I know. I love the story how like before you painted your walls in the advertising place, and then you came over the weekend and they had painted it back. But then the new job, you have a sign that says "Enjoy cocaine" or whatever, like on your wall. That's crazy. Totally a night and day.
Right. It was, and I was delighted. I was quite sure that there was no job that existed in the world that could be better than the one I had at Epic Records, especially when I started to produce records for Epic on my own. And I just couldn't believe I was getting paid to do this, listen to music and that I liked initially, and then make it better just by suggesting things and rearranging things and listening and hearing, a harmony in my head and saying, let's do that, and having it work, and hearing a band and saying, wow, this sounds good. I think I better go see them. And flying around the country, in the days when flying was fun, it was great. It was just great.
Well, and there's three big bands that you brought to the label that and they passed on, and two of them I don't want to mention, make people buy the book, but the one that I want to talk about was Kiss. And I think initially you signed Wicked Lester, and then they broke up, so the album was shelved, and then they rejected Kiss, and then what happened was Kiss got signed to another label. They bought the Wicked Lester album and shelved it further, so it buried it so that they couldn't come out. Because I guess that's the part that I'm fascinated, is that how did people never see Kiss unmasked like back? Because nowadays that couldn't happen with social media, but back then they were able to conceal their identities.
Yeah. Well, they didn't. Nobody knew about Wicked Lester. So,
okay.
Yeah, there was no association at all. I mean, they were never publicized. There was no marketing. The album never came out, and
they never did any live shows locally or anything.
probably did, but they were produced by an independent engineer. And then we finished financing the record, and they broke up before we could even conceive of how to market it or whatever. And it was so, it did sit around for a year or so, and then probably another year passed after Neil Bogart signed Kiss until he bought it, and then he just buried it. It would have been embarrassing to them, I think, musically, but it wasn't bad. It was sugar pop,
Right. So
But
when you saw them perform as Kiss, that was just a trio, and it was in a rehearsal room. Did they
yeah,
have the makeup on at the time as well?
yeah, they did, as I remember it, yes, and spandex, the whole thing, and they were good. I saw, commercial success there, and it wasn't my kind of music, really. I'm really a pop guy, not a metal guy at all. But I thought, wow, this is kids will like this, and I liked it because it was performance. It was, there was something different about it, and it was very good.
So it was
And
a trio. So Paul was doing all the guitars. So did they add? They added Ace later.
oh yeah, yeah. I don't know exactly when. I didn't follow them closely, um, but yes, they were a three-piece at that time.
Yeah, it's crazy that and those other two I won't mention, but people could buy the book and read
Yeah,
it. It's just crazy that you brought those three in the label term. That's such an insane story.
yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about was in the book where you talk about when you followed Beatles producer George Martin into the bathroom and you asked him
Oh
some
no,
questions.
it was George Harrison.
Or sorry, oh, it was George Harrison. Why did I
Yeah.
think it was George Martin? Okay,
Well,
so
because I did spend an afternoon with George Martin,
okay,
and that was about the Jeff Beck single. But
right.
it was at a CBS convention, a CBS Records convention in London, where I had to talk to him. He was my favorite Beatle, and gee whiz, I mean the Beatles. So I did. I managed to keep him interested for about a minute, and then I just excused myself because I thought, well, this guy, how many people come up to him and want to talk to him in a day? So it was
Right.
great.
Do you
I felt
remember the questions exactly that you asked him? I mean, you must have had these in your mind for a long time.
I asked him about his songs on Revolver, because I could see as soon as I walked up to him, I thought, you better engage this guy in conversation, because I know he doesn't want to talk to me right now. He just went to the bathroom. He wants to go back to his table, whatever. And I asked him about specific guitar parts. There was one little guitar figure in "Got to Get You Into My Life" where he played a duet with himself. He harmonized that little thing before somewhere in the middle of the song, and he was interested. You could see him focus a little, and because he understood that I knew something about music, something about their music in particular, and he wrote 3 songs on the album, and we talked about that, I think. But it was specific. It wasn't, hey, great to meet you. So I mean, what do you say? And afterwards I thought, well, Mick and Keith were there at that convention in a table right next to George and Ringo. And I thought to myself, what would I say to Mick Jagger? There was nothing I could do. I could never engage him in conversation. but with the Beatles, it was different.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where they say like don't meet your heroes, but most of the people that I've interviewed on the show have been like really kind and amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mean the heroes?
Yeah, I mean everybody that I've interviewed. Yeah, I mean like
Right.
yourself included. I mean it's like all these people that have made amazing music or films or authors that I've had. I mean all the comedians I've had. Everyone's been people of that level of success tend to be pretty happy most of the time.
Yeah, especially when they're having that success.
Right. Right. I know
Yeah.
you talk about how later sometimes they get frustrated and then they blamed you that, it's like you ruined the record, but like, well, we sold 6 million copies. So maybe it wasn't that bad. Right.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe I invite that kind of abuse. I tried to collaborate. I made a lot of money for these people, and some of them just they loved it then, and then they accuse you 2 decades later of just not doing a good job.
Well, I
Or,
think that you, as a producer, because I think a lot of people don't really understand what a music producer does. And you give
well,
a great example in your book about this is not a song that you produce, but just an example is that like the Eagles Take It Easy, that there's a banjo in there. And I was like, wait, I've heard that song a million times. And then I had to go back and listen closely after
yeah,
you said that and you know what to look for. You can totally hear a banjo. It reminds me
totally.
when I was in
Yeah.
college, my roommate was a music major. And do you remember the song, the Lenny Kravitz song, Fly Away?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay, so listen to that song. It's a great, you probably recognize, you probably heard on the radio, but
Yeah,
it's a
probably.
song like, I wanna get away, I wanna fly away.
Oh,
And on the
yes,
chorus,
yes,
there's a
yes,
very
yes.
subtle with you, but I never noticed it until he pointed it out. I was like, oh my God, how did you hear that? It's like, that's what I think is amazing about a producer is that they hear things that the average person is not going to hear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. It's like that other. There was another example, a Foo Fighters song that I that
Yeah,
that that I mentioned that there was a vocal harmony in there, and you hear it, but you're not conscious of it, and that was, I'm sure, a conscious decision by Dave Grohl to to keep it way down there, so it wasn't pop, you know.
right.
If it was if the two vocals were equally loud, it would have been more commercial, more predictable. Anyway,
Right. They wanted to be more cool, less poppy, more
cutting
rock.
edge. Right, right, and they
Yeah.
were.
And another interesting example of that is your Cheap Trick song that you did. The second two albums, I think you guys found the bigger groove because I feel like that first one, like the I Want You to Want Me, that version, it just feels a little like more poppy than the live
Very.
version that's more rockin'. Why
Oh
why
yeah,
did they do it differently live? Why didn't they play it rockin' like that in the studio?
have no idea. They presented that song the way, I mean, it feels exactly the way the demo felt. It was a lightweight song, a dance hall song, a 1930s flavor, and that's why I specifically arranged it with a tack piano, not a regular piano, a tack piano that's like, it's like a saloon in Wyoming in the 1800s. Then they got to Japan, and bang, it was a completely different song. Um, I guess they thought, well, this is too light for us. We don't want to be that pop. We want to be a rock and roll band. Every band wanted to be harder than they were, basically. You
Hmm.
know, they all wanted to be really, I mean, just rough and rocking and except Poison, they were pretty satisfied with everything, even Every Rose, which is pretty. I mean, I don't want to, be negative about it, but it was a fairly sappy arrangement. There are a lot of oohs and ahs in there. There are strings, and and I think at one point they said, we might catch hell from our fans, for something like this. But it was, I guess, Sixx made it sufficiently aggressive, so that it wasn't embarrassing to them.
Well, it's their only number one hit, I think, and your only number one hit.
Right.
So
Right.
it's interesting because wasn't a lot of their fan base women?
Yeah.
Like you talk in the book, this is so great that there was so many women coming in and out of the studio. You wanted to get like one of those like take a number kind of things at the deli that you get. Like that's how many there were. So explain this to me then. Like, is he having sex with them in the studio? And if so, like where? Is there like a lounge or something? And I would not want to sit on that couch afterwards.
There were lounges everywhere in all the studios. Obviously, I didn't see what went on in there, but no, when the bands were in the control room or in the studio, they were working. There was no outrageous behavior in the recording studio. Really, the only thing that I saw was probably something like that when I was at the Wicked Lester sessions, and Gene and Paul had some recreation with a woman that Gene met on the street in a drum booth in the next studio. I saw shadowy figures. Then I left.
All right.
So that was it. I mean, otherwise, when you're in the recording studio, it never got like that. I mean, we could stop working and socialize and drink and do the occasional drug, but there was never any blatant sexual activity in the studio
or in the lounges next door. You're saying?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure
that was more the lounges.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I wasn't inside.
Are you not allowed in that? Is it like they put a lock on the door if they have a girl, or how does that? What are the?
Oh yeah, there are locks on the door, and there's a lounge for every studio. So somebody honked. Anyway,
yeah, because you say that in the book that Motley Crue, you feel like the dirt is accurate, that their bad behavior wasn't exaggerated. There just wasn't a lot of it in the studio. Like they actually came and worked.
Right.
But Nikki said too that it was it Theater of Pain, the one that that's the one that he's kind of unhappy with, or at least he said that in the 90s. I remember they were so fucked up they didn't care.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, in the book, I say that it was the least satisfactory of the 3 albums that I did with them, because there was a lot of pressure, a lot of time pressure. They had to write, a lot of songs on the spot, really, to follow up Shout at the Devil's success. So there was tension and there was stress. And, by the time we got to Girls, 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 they could control, they had enough power to control the schedule and say, no, we don't want to go out on the road until we finish this album, and it's going to take, we'll tell you when we can go. So it was something.
So you did go to the Motley Crue bachelor parties, you said, like,
2
what
of them.
was that? Are you sworn to secrecy on those? Like, cause that sounds crazy. A Motley Crue bachelor. I mean, I feel like just their everyday party life was crazy. Did they kick it up a notch for a bachelor party?
Well, no, I didn't stay at Tommy's very long. It was in a strip club in the Valley. And I've never been, honest to God, I had never been to a strip club. And I wasn't comfortable there. So I went there and I watched something for a little while, and then I left. Vince's was at a mud wrestling club, the Tropicana, just off the freeway, and we did. I did stay there for quite a while, but it wasn't. It was more a spectacle and not a social thing. It may have become more sociable after I left. But I had brought a friend with me who had no idea what the record business was like. I brought him to Vince's party, and he got a glimpse of a different world. So that was the deal.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So talk about this too. I think you mentioned that Nikki Sixx, after he OD'd on heroin and he's pronounced dead, hours later he calls you up, say, hey, let's go get some sushi.
No,
So
he didn't call me. He didn't call me.
Him?
I called him.
Okay.
Yeah, to see you know, how he was, what was going on. I thought he was dead, you know, and then I think, you know, it was his accountant. Why I never really spoke to his accountant, but anyway, he was the one who told me that Nikki had, you know, revived and checked himself out, and he was at home. Unbelievable. So, you know, I called him, and that was the only time I had dinner with him. You know.
Do you remember the conversation? Was this in the opening awakening of like him going, oh crap, I need to change my life? Or was it just normal chit chat?
I do not remember. Oh, you know, this was like what, 40 years ago. I just don't remember what the conversation was like. Um, but I'm not sure if he really changed his behavior at that point. He was never, you know, hobbled by heroin. And as I said in the book, I never saw him act as if he was under the influence of anything, really. So I don't know how he or when he managed to indulge his habit, but he was definitely in control of it, you know. Not
Responsible heroin user. It's crazy.
Right, it's like a functional alcoholic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, what about with Vince? Like, because Vince had that car accident, he goes to prison. He comes back. Is he changed at all? Did you notice a difference in him? Did he ever talk about that?
No, we didn't talk about it. And no, he was the same guy, happy-go-lucky. Um, probably a little more sober, probably a little more serious for a while. He was just a very happy guy, positive and good-natured, you know, liked to party. That's it.
Yeah. And Mick was probably the least party person of the band. And talk about, though, you talk about how you doubled the rhythm guitars, which made the sound less gnarly, and the band didn't like that, but you think that helped the song get on the radio.
Yes, exactly. I love rhythm guitar. It was the basis of all of the songs. It was the basis of my how I approached producing the songs, recording the songs. You know, the best example is Cat Scratch Fever, which is a classic riff, you know, and it makes the song. It made the song. Every single Stones song is the same way. I mean, Keith, but he doesn't necessarily double anything, but it's his introductory riff that is the backbone of the song. So, you know, many times it would be the sound of one guitar was just a little too ragged for me. And when we doubled the guitars, you know, it just kind of smoothed things out a little bit. And it also made a more present part. It was a more present sound, easier to hear. And, you know, that was the thing that drove the musical track. was the rhythm guitar part. So I paid a lot of attention to that.
Yeah, because I mean, I think like especially Wild Side, I think that's a great example. Like, I can't imagine that being done differently. I feel like that was like a masterpiece. Like that song just came out perfect.
I'm not sure if we doubled that or not, because that's a pretty intricate riff on Wild Side. But I loved Wild Side. I
Yeah.
think it's the best song on that album, and we had a really good time doing it. Yeah, I thought the lyrics were pretty good. It's a great song.
Yeah. Now I think you said something about producers don't necessarily get to pick the songs, or do you have any input? Because it's interesting when the Girls, like the expanded edition or whatever it was all called came out. And I heard the song Rodeo and I was like, oh, this song's like really good. Like I like it better than the other ballad, You're All I Need. Was there any talk of putting
Yeah.
that song on the record instead? Or do you know why they didn't put it on?
I we never I don't even know I didn't know anything about that song.
Oh,
That came later, in what you said was what the expanded edition
yeah,
or
yeah.
remastered or whatever. No, I just we did what we did, and then I moved on to the next project, and I never I haven't heard many of the bonus tracks on subsequent albums that these bands came out with. One of the reasons that they did put all those bonus tracks on remastered or remixed albums was to make more money, because if the producer got X per album for the original 12-song album, if they added 4 songs that the producer didn't produce, then the producer was getting 75% of what he had originally gotten. And the band,
Huh.
if they put demos on, which they did, you
Yeah.
know,
And live tracks
then,
that obviously you didn't produce a live track.
right, then you can,
Yeah.
but 60, then you've got 16 tracks instead of 12, and you only get 12/16 of the album of the royalty that you had agreed to.
Huh. That's interesting. I never thought of that, but yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Did you hear any of was there other songs like demos that you got to hear or songs you guys recorded that have never been released? Like, is there any that you remember? I know it was a long time ago, but
I'm sure there are always 2 or 3 songs pretty much on every album that I did that we junked. You would start to record. You would record basic tracks for 15 songs, and then as each one progressed, you would see that this one was much stronger, and this might be a single, and this one not so good, and 3 or 4 would fall by the wayside. And you would always record more than you needed, and more than could actually fit on an LP. If you made really, really long sides, volume had to be much less.
yeah.
There were mechanical considerations to the length of a record.
Like, do you follow a band like Motley Crue after, that you're not their producer anymore, but do you still follow them and see what they release? And
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a couple of songs on Dr. Feelgood that I really like. I think they did a really good job. They were completely healthy at that point, totally straight.
sure.
That helped. But Bob Rock was good. Kickstart My Heart is great. You know, I listened to them, but no, I didn't. I probably didn't hear much 2 or 3 albums after the last one I did with any band.
Did you ever listen to the 1994 self-titled one with John Corabi? That's kind of like a cult classic.
No, I didn't. I was just too busy. Really, I spent 20 years in the control room, and doing 52 albums, and you just don't really feel like checking out more music after 12 hours in the studio.
Right.
You know? So you're pretty much focused on what you're doing at that time. So that when that project is over, you'd like to just clear your ears, clear your head, and not say, hey, what else is out there that I can listen to?
Right. No, that makes sense. Do you think that Motley Crue, I don't know if you even care, but do you think that they would deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Because I find it kind of puzzling that they're not in there. Because I feel like if we're talking about fame, they're playing stadiums 40 years later. Why are they one of the most famous bands in the world? How are they not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Good question. If you had said, when Motley Crue was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I would have let it go because I would assume they were in it. I don't pay too much attention to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That inducted Dolly Parton, who's fine but not rock and roll. They should be. Of course, they should be. Cheap Trick is. So why is that?
Yeah.
Cheap Trick is great, and they were my favorite band, but come on.
And Ted Nugent, I don't think he is, and I don't think now because of the politics, I don't think they're going to be too favorable towards him.
It was a tough one. It's a real tough one for me to to justify the fact that I even talked to Ted at this point, because he's been so extreme. But I don't know. Have you read that chapter?
Oh, I read the whole book. Yeah, I've had Ted on the show,
right.
And I thought it was nice in the book that because that's something that like in the 80s and 90s, like Republicans and Democrats, like, oh, you voted for this guy, oh, you voted for that guy, oh, okay, like, and then you go have a beer. That was like, it wasn't a big thing. Now it's like, it's obviously totally different. But to your credit, yeah, you speak highly of him. You speak highly of Stryper as a Christian rock band, and I'm assuming that's not aligning with you politically either. And so it's kind of like refreshing to hear that.
Yeah, politically, their faith had nothing to do with politics. They weren't evangelists, really. They would not be Trump fans, I don't
know. You should follow Michael Sweet on social media. I think he's posted some things that are a little, I don't know.
He's a great guy, Michael.
I loved having him on. I think he was a great guest.
They were fine people. The interesting thing is that Michael has now worked with 3 bands that I had something to do with.
Boston,
yeah, and
Tracy Guns.
There were 2. Who?
Tracy Guns. You worked with that.
Right. I thought what a strange pairing that is. But yeah, Michael. Those were such nice guys. The Stryper guys, they were great.
Yeah. And what about, okay, hopefully this isn't spoiling too much, but I have to ask you about this because I'm a huge Guns N' Roses fan. And I always wondered, I was like, it's interesting that you didn't produce that album. They went with Mike Klink. Obviously it worked out. It sounds amazing. But now I find out that you were in the running to produce Appetite for Destruction.
Yeah. Yeah. I was asked by Tom Zutaut, who signed them to Geffen, to go hear them in rehearsal. And you read that. It was a strange thing. And then Duff McKagan just went nuts on me. Maybe he didn't hear right. I was courteous, and I said, I need to come back when you've got your singer, because I can't evaluate any songs without the vocal. And thanks a lot. I did put some earplugs in or block my ears because the noise was physically damaging. It was so loud in there. And that's why I said, where's your singer? And they said, well, he doesn't rehearse with us because he can't hear himself. And we can't hear him.
Because I'm guessing it's just not, it's like an acoustic thing. Like the sound was not good in this room.
Well, it was a tiny room, and it was the loudest performance I'd ever heard. And I've heard some loud performances, it was just
But the way
ridiculous.
Duff told the story was that you said you put your hands over your ears and went, "Oh fuck," and walked out, which is not what happened.
Not at all what happened. And he just did that. And I asked him, at a subsequent release party somewhere, I said, why did you lie? Why did you make that shit up? And he was drunk and he got really angry and he threatened me.
He threatened to punch you, right?
Yeah. He threatened to punch me. And he was only 20 or 30 years younger and like half a foot taller. I mean,
do you think he even remembers that though? He's such a different person now. Like, I don't know if he wrote about that in his book. He probably doesn't remember it.
Possibly. Oh, he'll remember. He was on my case big time.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know Slash talked about how there are periods of his drug use where people will tell him you did this, and then he's like, I don't remember that at all. Like he's totally blacked out.
Well, I certainly remember it. I never knew exactly what the deal was with him.
Do you feel like at this point it's time to make peace with all this stuff, like with the thing with Nikki Sixx and Dee Snider, and like, I mean, aren't we old enough?
Look,
you guys are older than me.
Nikki called, and he did that make amends thing for the 12-step program. Dee is, a real mystery. It's just ridiculous. I don't try to explain that. I can guess about the reason for his silliness, but it's too late, really. I mean, I really don't need at age 78. I don't need to approach these people and say, "Hey, let's make up and be friends and kumbaya." No, I really I recoiled at his behavior and what he said. I mean, and then I asked him twice via email to get me on his show. Never heard from him. He's, who knows why they do this, but they do it.
So then what is your take on what's going on now with Nikki and Mick Mars? Like, because it seems it's really divided the fans, and a lot of the fans are saying the band is screwing over Mick Mars, and I don't think a lot of people are on the band side. They're all siding with Mick Mars, and I've said I don't know what to think of this because I don't think I have enough information. But right. What is your take? As I mean, you're kind of an outsider, but you've also worked with the band, so you must have an opinion.
Well, 3 against 1. I really don't know, but Nikki and Tommy, I think, have the lion's share of the interest in the band, the financial interest. Mick was my favorite guy. We really got along and worked very well together. He's a good guy.
That seems to be what I keep hearing. That's a consensus from a lot of people, musicians that have worked with him. And
oh yeah, he's a very decent person. The other 3 are somewhat different. Not that they're that much worse, but their behavior and track record is not what Mick's is.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, moving on to sorry.
No, I'm in his corner. But I do not, as you said, I really don't know the facts, so right. I shouldn't really make any judgment.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel too. With Poison, back to Poison, you're still on good terms with them. I haven't heard any bad things from either side on that, but why did they not ask you to produce the follow-up to Open Up and Say Ah? Because that's their biggest album. It was their first #1 hit. I mean, it was a massive success, so it's kind of shocking that they wouldn't invite you back to produce the follow-up, Flesh and Blood.
Don't know. And the other question, the converse of that question is if Cheap Trick, for instance, wasn't satisfied, or Motley wasn't satisfied with the job I did, why did they have me do 3 albums? The band
Right.
hires the producer, they can fire the producer. So these are questions that I've never been able to adequately answer. And as I said, at this point, I'm not seeking answers anymore. It's over. I've been out of it for 23 years and very happy. It was great. I've put it all in writing, and I'm really happy with what's on the pages. And no, I don't need to reintroduce that bile, that toxic substance into my life. I'm very happy now.
I'd
I'm
love to hear that.
blissfully retired in a wonderful place, and I don't need that.
Right. What about here's a band that you've never mentioned, but I'm just curious about, Skid Row. Like, were you ever a candidate to produce their album? Because that seems like it would have been a good fit. I mean, I love what Michael Wagner did too, but I just wondered if they ever came across your radar.
Nope. I was once interviewed by Foreigner. I would love to have worked with them. I can't remember who actually did the album they were talking to me about. And McCartney's office called once and asked if I was available, and I didn't believe it, but no, Skid Row never. Spinal Tap considered me too, and I didn't wind
And the
up.
Blues Brothers, right? Well, they were going to
Oh
make a
yeah,
second album. I don't think I even knew about that.
yeah. Well, we talked about it. We talked about it. Atlantic talked about it. It was that was quite an event in my life to have John Belushi in my dining room and in my music room.
You said he was the most hyper person you've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. He never
More
stopped.
hyper than Motley Crue. That's crazy to me.
Oh yeah, no. I'm just talking about twitching and moving and bouncing his leg and tapping his fingers on the table. He just didn't sit still, and he smiled more at my house than I don't think he smiled once when we went out in New York for the evening. I don't remember him smiling. He was an intense, very intense guy.
Was he funny? Just hanging out? Was he like kind of like, you hear stories of Chris Farley was he always like, just the funniest person in the room at all times. Was John Belushi like that too?
Not with me, no. He was pretty serious.
Interesting.
He didn't crack jokes. I can't remember what our conversations were like. Well, a lot of it was music. He went through my whole record collection, picking out albums that had songs that he would consider doing. That was quite. It was very memorable in many ways.
Yeah, there's so many things like that in the book. I'm also interested in more the later years when you talk about, like, LA Guns was one of the projects you did. And it's funny because you say, like, you have this list of hits and misses, and you claim Rip and Tear from LA Guns is one of your misses. But I mean, the band still plays that song 34 years later. Like, some producers might consider that a hit, but why do you say that was a miss?
Well, I never heard it. I don't think it was a radio song. That's why it's a miss. I mean, if it wasn't widely heard by the listening public, it just didn't get the exposure that I thought it deserved because it was so special. Especially the ending. That was the whole thing. I just wait for that. When it just takes off into the stratosphere. That song. That was it.
But you weren't as excited about that album
No.
at that point, or the project. Why did you do it then? You could have said no, right?
I liked them. I liked Tracy. And I was asked to do it. I can't remember if it was the label or the band or the manager. It wasn't Alan Kovac. I know that. I can't really remember who who contacted me, but I liked them, and I liked some of their songs, and I wasn't doing anything else, and so I did it. It was really after. Well, wasn't it in the early '90s?
I think it was 89 was Cocked and
Yeah,
Loaded.
it was late. So it wasn't, I wasn't doing my best work, and I probably wasn't getting that many different offers at that time. I mean, I never lacked for work, but I definitely wasn't working with big bands after like 89 or 90, because all the big bands played completely different music from the kind of music I was associated with.
Right. What about Lita Ford? Explain this, because you talk about how there was like, I mean, you kind of explained the process. There was some issues with the pitch of her voice. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain this like to my audience. Is it kind of like you kind of auto-tuned her like old school way? Or what did you do exactly?
I manually tuned
Yeah.
her. Yeah, not auto.
All right. So, but yeah, you
auto.
manually, before there was an auto-tune button, you manually went through and cut pieces of tape and made her
No,
sound on pitch.
I didn't cut any tape. We put the vocal track through somehow. I'm not an engineer, but they put it through a synthesizer with a pitch wheel. Synthesizers have those, that'll bend the note up and down. And so I could apply the result of the pitch wheel, or the effect of the pitch wheel, to her voice. So we would play a line, and I'd say, okay, that word is a little sharp, that word is a little flat. And then we'd rehearse it a couple of times, and I would sharpen the flat and flatten the sharp, and kind of bring it pretty close to perfect. And I had to do that with just about the whole album. We were very fortunate to be able to do that with her vocal. She's a good singer, but she just had a really tough time for some reason on that record.
What do you know? Like, what is your theory as to what was there? Just something going on? Like what? Like something, maybe a voice injury or something?
Nope, something with her inability to hear her own pitch. We kept trying different things, but it wasn't really a serious problem. It was just a challenging problem. The solution was challenging. We didn't know what to do until somebody came up with that idea. We tried different mics, different positions. We put two speakers facing each other, in front of her, and a microphone right in the middle, which is it's supposed to cancel out. You don't for some reason hear the speakers, but you would hear her voice. That didn't work either. So
Interesting. Well, it's interesting that you were able to find all these solutions for all these crazy problems, and you had so much experience. So when the music scene kind of changed, you pitched yourself as a consultant. That's what you wanted to do. You thought you could go in and help, with these kinds of recording issues, like with Lita, and it didn't, nobody wanted to have it.
Right. They said, we don't need that. And I think it would have been great. I had all the qualifications. I was an A&R guy for 12 years, and I was a producer for many years, and I was on both sides of the control room, really. I hired producers, and then I did produce. I had 50 albums at that time under my belt, and there were very young, inexperienced A&R men at labels who really didn't know how to make records and would waste a lot of money. I had a very good, I thought it was a really good concept, and I would have definitely saved the label many times what they paid me to do this, and it would have been fun. I would be a troubleshooter. I would be, the fix-it guy.
Kind of like the wolf in Pulp Fiction.
But like who?
The wolf in Pulp Fiction, the guy that comes over and he
Okay.
like fixes the problem. It's kind of like the guy in the movie that
The
is like,
cleaner.
yeah, the cleaner or something like that. But it made sense. But did you ever think of starting your own record label at that point? Because you knew all the things you had the connections. I mean, it seemed like you were putting a lot of energy into getting onto one of these other labels. It seems like you could have just started your own label.
I never wanted to. I liked the simplicity of what I did. I certainly didn't want to start a company. I didn't think I had the talent to do that either. I should have had an imprint, of some kind, meaning, a little production deal that would have given me my own. I would have the power to sign bands to a bigger label, and I could, instead of having permission to sign the band, I would be able to tell them, I'm signing this band, you're going to put it out. I'm going to produce it, and that's it. Or somebody else is going to produce it, and that's it. But it was just too complicated for me. It happened, some guys did it and did really well. Some guys, I guess, tried to do it and it didn't work out that well. I never wanted to do it.
Yeah. Well, so you talk a lot. There's multiple times in the book where you talk about kind of dealing with people in Hollywood and this whole like Hollywood thing of like, what have you done for me lately? Like first they don't accept you, then they accept you and they love you. And then it's like, oh, well, now you're not cool anymore. And then they ignore you. I mean,
Right.
what is your, like,
Right.
now that you're older and wiser and you look back on that time, because you've had some time to reflect, like, what do you think there's an answer to that? A solution? Is it maybe just acceptance or something you would have done differently in dealing with people like that?
No, it's just the Hollywood way. I mean, there's less sincerity, I think, and honesty and truthfulness in Hollywood than there is in New York. I honestly feel that. It's like Tommy Lee, a wonderful guy, but incapable of saying no. He was just so enthusiastic and so wanted to please, and he would say, dude, I'm there, I'm coming, and wouldn't show. And another thing that was kind of common, I thought, that I remember about LA was the goodbye that was, hey, listen, I'll call you, or we'll have lunch, we'll do sushi, have your people call my people, whatever, and that was a way to get out of a particular meeting with somebody, in a comfortable way, but
Yeah,
not
it's
saying,
weird though, because like the part where you talk about the book where the guy like the person says, "Oh, he can't meet with you, he's busy," and then you go to lunch and you see him at the same
right.
restaurant. So that's so crazy.
Well, yeah, that was Doug. That was Doug Morris. Really, really bad. I'm not sure why he had it in for me. I think it was because I complained that there was one album I did for Atlantic that I complained about. Kicks, maybe one of the Kicks album, that I said they weren't getting enough attention from the label, and someone told him that I had said that. Why, I don't know. Why would you tell somebody that? And then he called me up and he was pissed. So maybe he had it in for me. I mean, there are some people who just can't let it go, carry a grudge, have very bruisable egos. I used to care a lot about it, but that's just life. That's just life. And I write about it because it was very serious to me at the time. I mean, I couldn't believe how less important I was to these people than I had been.
which is so weird because you made so many hit records and then all of a sudden it's just like they have no use for you. It's kind of scary in a way.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the what have you done for me this week? And if you another thing that I said in the book was it's a little extreme, but it's if you can't do something for me, then basically you just don't exist.
So there's no loyalty. There's no like, some guy you worked with gets a higher up job and says, "Hey, let's bring Tom on. Tom's my buddy. I want to help him out. He's good at what he does. And Tom helped me when I was, an intern." There's none of that. There's not a lot of that.
No, really, no. It wasn't like I was a charity case. But no, I don't think people go out of their way, to help other people. I brought Greg Geller into Epic Records. He was at Record World, and he was a friend from college, and he had a brilliant mind for the whole record industry and all, he had an encyclopedia of music in his head. And I brought him over to take my place really at Epic Records while I tried to move into the studio from behind a desk. So I helped him out, but I don't think too many people would go out on a limb for other people in the record business. I loved being in the record business, and I loved a lot of people in the record business. I had a lot of friends, and I worked with a lot of great people. But I think honestly that of the three entertainment industries, movies, television, and music, I think movies and television are considerably better behaved. They have a little more integrity than the music industry.
Yeah. Did you ever think during that time too, when you were kind of struggling to find your way, and obviously you end up opening a bed and breakfast, but before you did that, did you ever think, because a lot of the bands that you produced was not cool at the time, did you ever think of shifting and trying to produce more like kind of like the pop rock? Because I feel like that would have been a good fit for you, like doing like Gin Blossoms or Counting Crows or stuff like that would have been a great fit, I think.
I guess, but the deal is, at that time, I think that I was so associated with corporate rock and hard rock, the old-fashioned kind, that was made in the 70s and 80s. There was a big break in 1990, a big break with Nirvana. And no, I don't think I could have just slid into that. And certainly no one else did. The A&R community.
About like Howard Benson. I mean, maybe he wasn't as associated with it back then, because I know that who did he end up? It was like ended up producing some really big pop person, but he started out doing like Bang Tango and kind of more like the arena rock bands that you had done. So, but maybe he just wasn't as known for that at that time.
Well, I think that my association with bands like Twisted Sister, Poison, Motley Crue prevented for instance, the Seattle bands from approaching me because it would have damaged their street credibility.
Yeah.
Wow, the guy who produced Motley Crue. It just wasn't edgy enough. It wasn't alternative enough. That's the deal.
So then you do this, the bed and breakfast. Did anyone, I always wondered if anybody ever came to the bed and breakfast because they knew that you owned it and they wanted to ask you a bunch of questions about music?
Yes, they did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did. And I was, I was happy to talk about it. I mean, it's fun to talk about it. I didn't want to go back to it, but I enjoyed talking about it as much as I enjoyed writing the book. They did that. We had people like that, and then we had some really nice celebrities, and that was fun too. Then I could ask the questions.
That's really cool.
You
I had
know.
a question too, about like, because nowadays everything's written on phones and things like lyrics and things. But back then, when you were recording, um, what did bands write their lyric? Did they ever come in with like notebooks and things, or like?
Yeah.
Because I know like I heard the story of the Warrant Cherry Pie, like the lyrics are written on a pizza box. Like, was there weird stuff like that that you saw?
Yeah, but they would wind up probably in notebooks. There, everyone had a notebook, pretty much. We didn't have machines then. We didn't have, you couldn't write anything on a tablet, so you wrote it out. I remember, Brett was sitting behind me writing lyrics, when I told that one story about the girl. Yeah, they that's what would happen. And then they would hand the lyrics to me, and I would transcribe them onto another page the way I wanted to deal with them when we were doing vocals.
Did anyone? I'm surprised that nobody would like lose one of those notebooks or something. Like, did Nikki Sixx never like on the heroin binge or whatever? He never like lost a notebook or something. Like, oh shit, all the songs I wrote for the album are on a bus somewhere.
Yeah, I don't. It never happened. It just didn't happen. I don't. I'm not sure why, but
Like we said, he must have been one of the most functional heroin. I mean, he wrote a freaking book, the Heroin Diaries. I think I got it somewhere. While he was on heroin. I mean, that's crazy to think of too, that he was writing all that stuff while he was on heroin.
well, that's why a lot of it wasn't accurate.
Right. That's what you said. So you guys still haven't made peace on that thing, because that came out later, right? Or no? That
Well,
was
the deal was that the Heroin Diaries was actually reviewed in the New York Sunday Times book review, which is as good as it gets.
Hmm.
And I was amazed at that. And I bought it and read it, and it talked shit about me. He claimed to have produced all of Vince's vocals. he, he may have coached Vince, but that it was completely wrong. He talked about my, making notes about picking up ballet slippers, something like that. It was just ridiculous for my daughter. And I wrote a letter to the New York Times book review, and I said, I was there. This is fiction. It's just ridiculous. I mean, how could you actually write a book remembering? How could you remember what you did when you were high on heroin?
right. And so then when he calls later, and does he apologize? Does he take it back and say, no, you're right, that didn't happen? Or does he just say like, sorry, I wrote that? Or like what?
We didn't talk about that specifically. I did say I was interested in coming down to Madison Square Garden to see your final show, because this was the last tour, the final tour, the breakup tour. And he joked about it. He said, "Yeah, come on down. I know the bass player." And I emailed him afterwards, or I phoned him afterwards, and I said, "Who do I see about tickets?" And I never heard from him. So he did what he had to do, to fulfill the requirements of the 12-step program. But he didn't. I don't think he really wanted to mend fences.
Hmm.
He was pissed off, really pissed off, and embarrassed, I think, about the letter I wrote, because I kind of rained on his parade.
But then he kind of like wrote like a pretty nasty letter after that too, right? His response, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, with a few veiled threats in there.
Yeah, I'll expose you for all these things that we did back in the day.
That's right.
Yeah.
And well, you can read it all online. It's all old news. I think I defended myself adequately.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you still do keep in touch with from the bands that you said you talk to Ted occasionally? Anybody else?
Yeah, I talk to Ted occasionally. He sends me music. I was in touch with the guys who wrote the endorsements on the back, with Ricky Rocket and Bunny, Carlos, and occasionally, if I saw the guys from Poison, I'm sure, it would be enjoyable. Most of the people that I really enjoyed and who enjoyed our friendship were in bands that didn't make it. They were the good guys.
Really?
Interesting. I think that if you take a band that's really big and that has enjoyed a lot of success, I think there's a pretty good chance that there's one guy in that band who's responsible for most of that success, who is willing to prioritize success over many other human values.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Kind of sad at the same. I mean, we're really sad at the same time if that's indeed true.
Well, I don't know. It's the Hollywood animal. Like agents, talent agents, and
who are the bands that you like? I know, because I think I didn't realize this. Did you do an album with Tora Tora?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I didn't mention that in the book. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah,
I like those guys. They're good. I think they're underrated.
I can't remember the album, honestly.
I think it was called Revolution Day, I believe. If it's the one in '94.
Probably. It was probably after 90. I did it at Ardent Studios, which is the really famous studio.
Yeah.
Down, where was it? Memphis, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. That's where they're from.
Yeah. Yeah, Beale Street.
Yep.
I did that. Yeah, you're right. I did that. I actually didn't. I wasn't. I didn't remember that album.
I think because it said in the book that was the last album that you made, and then that's the first time that you had like nothing on. And you were going to open up a sandwich shop, but then you ended up doing the bed and breakfast.
Yeah. Well, the last album I made, the last project I did was Rockstar, the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah. Cause you came out of retirement to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here's my cat. My cat's hungry.
Yeah. My cats are, they're clawing at the doors too. So, we'll wrap this up, but, thank you so much for doing this. Great stuff. Great stories. I loved it all.
Good.
Anything else you want to promote or add here? I mean, when does the book come out? Do we have a release date for it?
The book comes out November 21.
Okay.
And the reviews, the few reviews and the feedback I've had are all very positive. I'm really gratified by that. I think people are surprised that I could write.
I really enjoyed it, and it's hard for me to read books because I get bored, but you don't get bored reading this book. Every chapter, your story, the band's stories, it's all fascinating to me.
Good. That's great to hear. Really, very gratifying for me to hear. Everyone says they kind of went right through it, that it flows, and they find that they're reading much more than they planned to read at each sitting. So
right, yeah. Well, especially like once I got to the Motley Crue stuff, I was like, oh god, and the Guns N' Roses. Oh, those parts were so fascinating, and the Poison. That's the stuff I really love. But all of it, Cheap Trick, how you grew up, you got to see Elvis, you got to see the Rolling Stones. I mean, you've done some really cool stuff. So
I had a really fortunate and interesting musical life, mostly because I was in New York for 6 years at school.
Yeah.
And then lived in New York for 8 more years after that. And then went to LA. I mean, a lot of music in those 2 places.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, people should get the book. And then are you going to be doing some more podcasts and stuff, or you need some? I know all the podcasters that would love to have you. So if you want to do more, I can probably make a recommendation.
Sure. I love to talk about the book. I love to talk about the subject. in the book. Yeah, I've done a lot of interviews, a lot of podcasts, and I've got one TV presentation, one TV probably a live Zoom, and a couple of 30 radio 10-minute interviews, and a lot of stuff.
Wow, very cool. All right.
Growing interest in the book, which is nice.
Yeah, very nice. Well, thank you so much for doing my podcast. Thanks for writing an amazing book. Thanks for all your musical contributions over the years. I really enjoyed listening to all your music.
That's great to hear, and thank you. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, see you, Tom.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the full podcast episode. Please help support our guests by following them on social media and purchasing their products, whether it be a book, album, film, or other thing. And if you have a few extra dollars, please consider donating it to their favorite charity. If you want to support the show, you can like, share, and comment on this episode on social media and YouTube. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can give us a rating or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Finally, make sure you're subscribed to the show on YouTube for the video versions and other exclusive content. We appreciate your support. Have a great rest of your day and shoot for the moon.